Hi, it's Jen Healy. I'm back with day 6 of Date with Destiny with Tony Robbins down here in Florida. And this is it. This is integration day. And I took a night to rest and really take my time to integrate all that I've experienced in this last week and then boil it down to what were the most significant things that I have learned and share with you my experience. So this, of course, is my summary and my recap, and there are so many different ways to approach this and so many different perspectives. So this is just one way of interpreting and bringing this information back to you. So it's through my filters. I always like to preface that. And we ended with looking at our decisions and what really molds our day-to-day, what choices we're making, what are we focusing on, kind of digging into the deeper experiences and the memories that molded those beliefs. So much of what we have learned, even though it's coming from well-meaning people, is conditioning that is fear-based and that's limiting in nature. And when we uncover that, when we uncover the root cause of some of these patterns, some of these behaviors and thoughts, then we do have the power to change them. And I think that is the most significant thing, the most important thing that I like to remind myself of and what I like to live by, and then what I like to share with my clients and my practice. I really have been so dedicated the last 20 years to this empowerment path and to the spiritual teachings and to up-leveling my own reality. And that has come from a lot of suffering and a lot of trauma and growing up in unconscious environments that I found to be hurtful. And of course, like everyone, some of those thoughts and some of those belief systems are carrying over into my adult life, like I'm sure you can relate to. And so I just like the idea of taking time to uncover that and discover that. So today was about discovering what decisions we have been making that have molded our life, and what new decisions are we going to make to live our ultimate destiny. And this is really big, huge work. So we spent time looking at our purpose, looking at our mission, coming up with a vision of our lives, really imagining that into being, which is really big for me. I do a lot of this work with my meditations. And I've done it before. I've done it 100 times and now 101 times, because it is that important to keep rediscovering and recommitting to whatever path that you want to take. And so I have been living a path that is completely dedicated to my joy and helping others, empowering others, bringing these teachings. That's why I'm here, to gather more nuggets for you and also for my living my best life. And then how can I bring this to the world in a way that really contributes? So contributing to the world and giving back and being an inspiration to others has been really important to me. And I'm still leading with that. But what has changed for me is I like the idea of that we can do this with more graciousness, with more ease, with more allowing. And so that underlining feeling of being loved and supported and guided by the universe, and of course, everyone around us is included with that, because we're all part of the same life force energy. We're all part of the same source energy. Without any religious backbone or foundation for that, I really feel like if we just connect to that idea that the same source energy is pulsing through all of us, then we can feel our divinity. We can feel how connected and unified we are instead of feeling separate and alone. And I know this is a really big deal for a lot of people. And we can use technology to reinforce that separation, or we can use technology to feel more connected, which is why I'm doing these videos, so that we have an opportunity to connect and have some sort of meaning, some deeper understanding that we're coming to by sharing these teachings. So I hope that you have gotten something precious and valuable out of them. So yeah, I wanted to just continue sharing some of the nuggets that I got from Tony Robbins. I love his perspective, his one-liners. I've written down lots and lots of notes, so I'm going to be peeking at my notes and sharing some of those perspectives with you. And what was the most profound shift in gathering, because it was 5,000 people, it was kind of in a big conference hall. And that's a lot of people, a lot of energy. It's a little overwhelming for me a lot of the times. I like to have a little bit more quietude and spaciousness in my world, but that didn't happen. So it was loud, it was cold, it was a lot of energy, but it was wonderful to be part of people's transformational process. So many people stood up and shared their stories and their breakthroughs, and it's so touching. It's so touching to see how human we are and how many people are in a deep level of suffering that is so invasive that we live with it as if it's normal, right? And suffering can really be optional. We can experience pain and we move towards pleasure, but then there's a deeper level of happiness and joy and love that comes out of us. So most of the time, pleasure is seeking something outside of us and taking that in, and happiness and joy and love are something within us that we bring out and that we share. And that's such an important distinction, especially if we're constantly seeking like external gratification or external pleasure or external approval, then our life can feel pretty empty inside, and then we get this codependency on the external world for the things that are inherently ours. I feel like these are our God-given rights. We are inherently love, joy. We have a deeper well of peace that we can tap into, but we often get distracted by the external world. I'm sure you've had that experience at times. And life is demanding on us, so we have to tune ourselves. We have to choose. Otherwise, we're just going to get swept up in the stimulation and the chaos and the frenzy of life, which happens, and that can happen at times. And then we come back into alignment. We tune ourselves not only with our thoughts and our feelings, our emotions, our choices, our behaviors, changing our state. And most importantly, what I got out of this week is changing the meaning of things. So, like, for example, we look at our values, and one of the away values I have is failure, right? So this idea of failing being the worst possible thing, and that if I just show up and I offer my gifts, then I've succeeded. So a lot of people ask me, with all the different projects and programs I have, is it successful? And for me, I say it's successful because I actually did it. Just the fact that I even did any of the programs and projects and different courses and things I've been working on, the fact that I did it for me is successful. It's so much our society is based on profit and numbers and measuring and comparing. And so we're setting ourselves up for failure. So I look at ways of how can we set ourselves up for success? How can we already look at the ways that we are succeeding? And it's not to discourage us, to become lazy or even do less or do more or any of those things. It's about an internal feeling, it's the feeling of being enough, of being worthy, of being satisfied. Fulfillment comes from this idea of giving. And so many times we're looking to take or to get that feedback loop from the universe to give us the pat on the back or reinforce us with the dangling carrots, whether that be a promotion or more money or, some sort of measure of success in our relationships, like getting married or having kids, and allowing ourselves for it to be enough. That is a big shift in the meaning of things. So I've definitely uncovered some meanings that are holding me back, like not trying something because I'm afraid that failure will be the result of it. And it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of willingness to face those fears and do it anyhow. So courage is doing it even though you're feeling fear. So most people are waiting for their fear to go away in order to try something, and it just doesn't work like that. It's always there, it's always a choice, but we choose love anyhow, and we choose courage anyhow. And so these are big internal structures. We're creating a new rewiring of our system, a new software, if you will, an operating system that we're operating by, that we're willing to dedicate our life to something more than what we have already learned, have already seen. And this is really more aligned with our inherent nature. My biggest takeaway, especially in the meditation process, It's so powerful to meditate in a group of 5,000 people and ask that higher energy, whatever you want to call it, what is my purpose? What am I here for? And the answer I got is, I'm here to be who I am. And it seems so generic, right? It's too simplistic, but it's the most powerful message, because like, who I am is joy. Who I am is love. Who I am is that harmony and peace. So we want to remember that, especially when situations creep in, because I can say that all day long, and then I laid down at night last night and I was flooded with the being away for a week. I was flooded with all the to-dos, the things I have to get done, situations that were conflictual. All the contractions are still there, and I noticed my mind was being kind of like falling into that groove. It was kind of a set point, like, where is our gravitational pull? And I said this in the nugget earlier, that Tony has this great expression that most of us, almost all of us, let's be honest, have a highway to stress. We can go there instantly, and then a dirt road to our happiness. And if that is really the way that we're living, and most people, when you ask them, they'll say, when you ask them what do they want, they'll say that they want to be happy. And then it's really a deep and meaningful question is, are our choices aligning with that desire? Are we living each moment dedicated to bringing more happiness and more joy and more love into our lives, if that's what we truly want? Across the board, when I ask somebody, what do you want? They say, I want to be happy. And then their habits with taking care of themselves, their habits in their choices with their job, with their relationships, their perspectives, it's like a conflict, an internal conflict that is keeping us from living that greater depth of joy and satisfaction and fulfillment. So I have made this new dedication to live my life dedicated to my joy, living my purpose, and doing that with more flow and more grace and more ease and more allowing, which has been my work for the last 10 years, is like, discovering that it doesn't have to be like, go for it, make it happen, that kind of more masculine force that we've been taught to lead with in this world and to value, that we can allow that to happen with more graciousness. So my virtue is graciousness. And I love the feeling of grace. I love the feeling of like the royalty of it, the elegance of it, the sweetness of grace, and what does graciousness look like. And that happened yesterday, where I accidentally locked myself out of my rental, and I was going to be 2 hours late for the conference because of that, and felt really limited in my choices because my keys and my phone and my money and everything was inside the cottage. And then it was looking at, how can I be resourceful here? Where do I go when I'm under stress? Where does my center of gravity shift to? Because those are like defaults within our system. And then I remembered what I could do. I actually had the car keys in my pocket, but it took me like an hour to remember that I actually had the car keys. Because under stress, I had narrowed thinking. I wasn't able to see all the opportunities and choices available to me. So even though it took about 5.5 hours to get back into my rental, I was able to go to the conference even though I had nothing, right? I was like, well, I'm going to go anyhow. And it worked out. Everything was fine. I got lost a couple times because, we're so dependent on our phones for GPS and all of that stuff. But I got there. Even when I was noticing my triggers of like missing a turn and not knowing where I am. And I was like, I got back on track and I wound up getting there. So even after learning all these tools, we're going to have a challenge. And then when we look at the challenges as opportunities, instead of the problems being a problem, we look at them as a gift. And where's the blessing in that? So I was able to really, in real time, in a real situation, apply these teachings, noticing when I would just go on autopilot, what was the automatic default, and where did I want to take it? Because really everything was okay, and everything did work out, and it was an amazing day. And I'm glad that I made it. Oh, it was just like such a funny way of ending it, but I didn't really miss anything, It all was totally fine. And that stress and that contraction could be released with changing my thoughts, making new decisions and dedicating to my life to living with more of that grace and ease. Well, thank you for listening. You can find out more about me at transformationaltraining.online for one of my meditation courses, my core activation courses. And then zenhealing.com is my parent site, ZenHealyng.com, no I.